Okay, this is take two. I realized the other planning video was extremely low resolution, so sorry about that. And I have this set up for my streaming, so why not use it? I stream actually survival game called The Long Dark, mostly on the weekends at Twitch TV, no problem. That's N0 problem. Anyway, let's talk about, you're not here to talk about that. Let's talk about the Ouachita Trail. Wasn't super happy with the one I did before anyway, so let's do it again. So this is Ouachita Trail planning. First of all, general backpacking. Basically, assuming you've done some car camping, you would want to build up. So if you've never gone camping at all, you start with something called car camping. That's just basically where, there's a parking lot next to the tent site, or that you can walk to. A lot of state parks, like Thunderbird has this, the Talamina State Park, that is the beginning of the OT, has this. So the idea is you can take lots of equipment there, right? You could take that air mattress that's 9 inches thick and all that jazz. Okay. So what do you do after that? Well, if you actually want to get into backpacking, there's a rabbit hole of YouTube materials. So you start out with kind of a test trip. Still do car camping, but do it as, I'm packing a backpack for a backpacking trip. I'm just going a few hundred yards over here and making sure I didn't forget anything. I could always bail out back to the car, or a car that's, like a mile away, somewhere you could get to very quickly. And then from there you build up to a multi-night out away from the car. So full disclosure, I didn't really do any of that. I hopped right into doing a solo camp in the backwoods, which you should not really do. But I survived, but kind of build up to it. And then, you get to where you're a night or two out. That's backpacking. It's a little intimidating, making sure you have everything you need. So that's what I said, kind of build up to it. And like I said, there's a bazillion backpackers for information. Darwin is a big one. Homemade Wanderlust. This guy, what is it? Outdoor Adventure. Sorry, I have the link here. There's a pretty good YouTube list. Sorry. Give you the URLs. I thought I had it here. That I've sent to a lot of people. This guy, Frozen Outdoor Adventures, and has this beginning backpacker list. It's like 19 parts long. It's always broken down: first aid, and fire, and how to hang your food and cook. It just goes through everything. This is really good. I've recommended it to people, and other people have enjoyed it. It seems pretty well put together. But there's a whole lot of backpackers that have, channels, and it's a real rabbit hole, put it that way. Okay, so let's talk about thru hiking, or specifically the Ouachita Trail. A year ago, I've never heard of the Ouachita Trail. So the Ouachita Trail starts in Talamina State Park, which is near Talahina, Oklahoma. Yes, that's very confusing. You would not get a disagreement from me. Which is the far eastern edge of Oklahoma, out past McAllister. It's Oklahoma City, and then McAllister, and then out this way. So, and then it runs about 50 miles in Oklahoma, and then the rest of it, it's 223 miles long overall, and the rest of it's in Arkansas. It ends up kind of near Little Rock / Hot Springs, closer to Little Rock. So what about thru hiking? So I discovered the Ouachita Trail doing a loop. Did the Bordston Loop, which is over here. It has about the first 8 miles, and then there's a trail called the Boardston Trail, which goes across the Holston Valley here. And then there's another trail called the Old Military Road Trail that loops back around that takes you on this old road that was carved by the cavalry out here. It's a really cool loop. I think it's about 30 miles, maybe a smidge more, that my daughter and I did for her right around her 18th birthday. And we really enjoyed it, and I kind of fell in love with the OT. So the big thing about the OT, first of all, you don't have to through hike it. You can section hike it. It's broken up into 10 sections. I met a lot of section hikers. We're like, yeah, we're doing 3 and 4 or whatever, and then next spring we're gonna do 5 and 6, and over the years you get it. That would be a cool way to do it. You could take your time. You could see everything in that section. You could do kind of that section for a good time of year. You could isolate your weather, and anyway, that is one thing you could do. If you are going to through hike, so if you go to a through hike, you have several. Let's not get into that yet. Let's talk about, you have several decisions to make. One is direction. You can go eastbound or westbound. I went eastbound just because I live in Oklahoma, so I could get dropped off at the park here. I had a reservation at a campsite the night before. It was about 100 yards from where the trail started. Walk over and get it. It's pretty widely held opinion that the hardest bit of the trail is the first 60, 70. It's at the beginning. You quibble about which is the section, but the western end here in Oklahoma and the beginning of Arkansas is quite a bit harder. You can just kind of see even on the topo map that the ridges are a little bigger, and you're a little more up and down, and it's a lot more rocky and a lot more going way down on the ridge and then coming back up, and it's rough. So the rough edge of the thing here, whereas the western edge down by Little Rock is last 2 days. This lake is huge. You look at this. This is 200. This is 2. This lake is more than 20 hiking miles to go around it. You spend the last couple of days next to this lake. You're next to a lake, you're usually pretty flat. So this edge is easier. So an argument for going east to west or from west to east would be you could build up your strength and legs, and a lot of people say that is the way to go. It's not the way I went. The mile markers are this way, and like I said, this is where I live. So there's pluses and minuses either way. The other big decision you have is time of year, which is basically spring or fall. You could do winter. You're gonna have to carry heavier stuff to deal with the cold. Most people do spring or fall. Summer would be ridiculous. There's a few people who tried this year and they were roundly discouraged. It's a mess out there in the summer. I can't imagine. There's a lot big sections of the trail that are pretty overgrown, and you're down in river bottoms and stuff, and it would just be it would be like insect heaven for one thing, or hell. So in the fall, you have the lovely leaves turning. You also have the lovely leaves falling and covering all the rocks and covering everything in about a foot deep layer of if I drop something, it disappears forever. So that is the downside of fall. As a guy who just hiked it, it is beautiful while the leaves are turning. Spring, your downside is you're both positive and negative is water. It will be a positive in that there would be more water around. I spent a lot of stress worrying about water and how much water I was carrying, and there's a big waterless stretch, and is this creek running or not? You wouldn't have, assuming that it is a typical spring where you've gotten a lot of rain, you wouldn't have those problems. Instead, you have a different set of problems where stuff is wet, stuff is soggy. The creeks that I were crossing, which were mostly dry, are now mostly running. So you have about a bazillion crossings of wet creeks a day, which are just chances to get your shoes wet, and then they tend to stay wet. And so that would be a downside. And Oklahoma weather in the spring. I got real lucky with the weather. It was pretty good. And then your last decision is time frame, which is, I only had really 2 weeks, would pretty much be the max I could take off. And I managed to do it in 2 weeks, but I trained really, really hard as I go into, and doing like 15 miles a day is pretty tough. There wasn't a whole lot of time. If it was daylight, I was walking and east, and you could take 3 weeks and do 10 miles a day and probably I would have a far more enjoyable hike. A lot of time. Or even go even slower than that, 4 weeks. I met a guy who was out there 4 weeks. He was about halfway. He had a walking stick kind of thing instead of poles. He had a huge pack, and he was doing his thing. So you could do that. It'd be fun. But assuming that you still want to thru hike and you've done all this, you picked a direction or whatever, you're like, yeah, but what do you do? Do you carry like 2 weeks of food or 3 weeks of food? No, that would be terrible. Instead, basically, once you've done a 3, 4, maybe even 5-night tops backpacking trip, all thru hiking is stringing those together with the resupply. So somewhere to either pick up a box of food that you've mailed or I guess buried theoretically in a cash bucket. I don't hear a lot of people doing that, but I guess you could do it. Or mailed, or there's a store that you could buy stuff. The latter is not much of an option. There's not a ton of resupply towns. I talked to people who tried to do it in Mount Ida and had a very bad time. Maybe Mina, you could get a Dollar General or something, but basically, yeah, thru hiking is just, I go 3 or 4 days, shoot me a box. So, you just string those together along with some transportation to and from the trail. In my case, like I said, I had spouse to drop me off and pick me up in Little Rock, which was pretty nice. So, but there are people who run shuttle services, and I have a bunch of links. So let's go ahead and let's talk about resupply first. So what I did in terms of planning, well, one thing is I have this massive spreadsheet on Google Sheets, which has got like 8 tabs. On the Sheets app on your phone, you can designate a sheet as offline. So I pretty much had everything here. I had, every day, picked a mileage target, stayed relatively close to them, and got off a little bit for some reasons. I got a little behind in here, but that's okay. I caught back up, but I had a plan, and mostly I had a resupply plan. So on day 4, my plan was to be about Queen Wilhelmina State Park, which is a very common resupply point, at about mile 50. So right after you cross the state line, which is around, I think, like 46, pay no attention to these mile markers. Some of these are wrong for some reason. It jumps out of order here on the crazy track I have. But this is around mile 50. This is Queen Wilhelmina State Park right here. There. This is my Garmin app from, I'll talk about navigation in a minute. But so I wasn't able to get a room here. You could mail yourself a box here. Getting a room here would be really cool. It's got a very nice restaurant. But what I did was I got a room down the hill down here. There were these rich mountain cabins. There's a store over here. I don't know if you could resupply there, but I had the guy give me a call. Or I gave him a call. He gave me a ride. You can see this is my plan. I mailed him a box. Also, I have contact info for that guy. He was pretty helpful. I ended up meeting Derek here because we changed plans. So theoretically, I could have had him bring me a box, but no problem. So I did that. So the last day, I ended up doing more than 4.3 miles. I didn't quite reach the shelter, I think. So I did a longer, like 6 miles. That was really the only day where I got rained on a lot during the day of the hike, that day. And a lot of it was just, I came up high on this ridge, and it was just, I was in a cloud, basically. So that was resupply 1. So I had things for the first 3-4 days. 4 was really a half day. But I had 4 full days worth of food in case I was slow. If I had to, I could come all the way in here at night, but I pretty much kept to my schedule. All the resupply points are like that. And then so that's called a Nero day. A 0 day would be if I took 2 nights here. I would have a Nero. I'd hike like 6 miles in, so it's a near 0. And then if I took 2 nights there. The next day would be 0. We're at 0 miles hiked. I never took a 0 in 2 weeks. I didn't have schedule for it. I took 2, maybe 3 Neros. I took 2 where I had a bed, and I took 1 where I just stopped in the middle of the day. So my second stop, which is coming up, was about halfway, and on my plan was right here on day 8, story resupply. Originally, I was going to do a week of food, 7 days worth of food to carry all the way to the next Tuesday, which was my second Nero at this bed and breakfast. I decided against that when I saw how much 7 days worth of food weighed in my pack. So I sent a box here to Story, Arkansas, which most people do. It is right at the midpoint of the trail. It's about 120. I guess technically the midpoint's like 111 back here, but it is geographically right smack dab in the middle. It's home to the Bluebell Cafe and Country Store, which Lori runs, and she's a trail angel / shuttle. She's really used to getting boxes there. It's kind of a legendary thing to do. Go visit, although it's this little store in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Story is tiny. Anyway, so that was my second resupply stop. And then for my third, on so day 11, near Jesseville, Arkansas, which I think is like right there. Yeah, just north of Hot Spring Village, which is this weird retirement community with like 12,000 homes. But no businesses. So right out here, you have all these restaurants and stuff. And there was a B&B right up here. They have Mountain Time. They were very helpful. They picked me up at the trailhead, gave me a ride into down here for a restaurant in the early evening before like anybody was there. Sat and ate at a restaurant, which I'm pretty sure I've not done. Well, pretty much the rest of 2020. It was kind of weird, but there was nobody there. And I had a great meal. So they were really helpful. This is a really cool place. I want to take my wife back to it. It was really nice. And then from there, I had mailed a supply package. So there you go. And then, so that's all you really do. You just string together these 3-4 days, and maybe 5, and figure out a way to get to somewhere where you can pick up a box. If it has a post office, right, you can mail a box. And that's about it. So planning links, planning things to do. Really good links. I'll put these in the descriptions. Start at Friends of the Ouachita, which is a group foot that maintains the trail. These folks are always out painting blazes, clearing trails, building bridges, upgrading shelters this year. There's a ton of work. If you can't volunteer, you can do a membership either by volunteering or small. I think like $25 is the base membership or something. That's what I paid. There's no fee for the trail, so like a permit or anything. So I just did that. Just considered that my fee for the trail. Other things, you can look at All Trails. Is a free. It's got some pretty good stuff. It's good for hiking in general. Not as useful for the OT because of the real next few things I'm going to tell you. I would encourage you to join the Ouachita Trail. Well, now there's a 2021. There's going to be a new one every year. I got so much information out of this thing. Of current conditions, people who are out there. You can see people looking out for people who are out on the trail. A note, some weather. I had some people from this group ping me about, because they knew I was out on the trail, kind of in this general area, and there was some weather coming in. More than one person actually pinged me, hey, this big storm's coming in, and it's like, yeah, I'm hunkering down in a shelter. It's very useful. I would encourage that. And if you're not a Facebook person, I don't know. There's this Ouachita Maps site. Oh, and there's lots of different things on here about, water sources and shuttle information. There's maps. Let's go ahead and talk about navigation a little bit, because I'm about to talk about this Ouachita Trail map site. You should really have, so for principal form of navigation, there's an app called Guthook's Guides, and there's one. So you have to purchase like a trail. So this has the big thru hikes on it. Like this is really popular on like the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, things like that. But there is one for the Ouachita Trail. You need to pay $10 for this trail. You can get a triple crown of Ouachita, which is I think got the Eagle Rock Loop and the Ozark Highlands Trail, which is up here as well. But this thing is amazing day to day. I have it. Let's see here. Oh, it's not going to work. I haven't set my location. So this is only available on your phone. I'm running this on a PC through an Android emulator called BlueStacks that I've signed in. So it's a little weird working on here, but it's actually meant for a phone, obviously, instead of a keyboard. But I mean, day to day. Oh, geez. See, I think it just crashed. Day to day, this. Holy moly. Well, maybe I'm not going to be able to show you this. It's not working. Okay. I can look at I'm going to go to this campsite. Or what about this guy? There's a thing at 29.9 and it'll literally have a dot. You are on the trail. You follow your blue dot. Like, am I on the trail? I'm going to open it up and see if I'm on the red line. And you can see comments from recent people about, am I going to be able to get water here? Is water flowing? Hey, what's this tent site like? Is this a good campsite or is this a really crappy tent site with not much room? Not level, very small, right? So day to day, you're looking at this, you're like at this, and you think, oh, okay, I'm trying to get this tent site here, and it'll tell you, oh, it's 25.5 miles ahead. Well, I'm probably not going to do that. Maybe I'll be here at the shelter where it's 21.6 miles ahead, and I have to ascend 4,000 feet and descend 4,500 feet. Yeah, I'm probably not going to make that for the day. But Guthook is not without its flaws, but it's pretty amazing. Like, you get pictures of things. It'll have a comment sometimes at tricky places in the trail, but you should have some backup navigation. So you can have maps, laminated maps. There's a whole set here on the OT map site. I had my Garmin InReach for navigation backup and had this route loaded on it, and that was what I considered backup. And I only had paper maps in terms of the Ouachita Guide, which is a book. I should mention, I don't think I have yet, the Ouachita Guide book, the Ouachita Trail Guide by Tim Ernst here. You can buy it direct from his website. Don't buy it on Amazon. I might have to look. timernst.com. There you go. And you can also get a set of laminated maps for, like, I guess it does breaks it into 3 parts. I think they're like $15 a piece. So they're not too bad. You could make your own by printing off that site, but you should have that and a compass, some sort of backup navigation. But Guthook is amazing. You use it a lot. As far as other resources, that's mainly it. That a lot of planning. Like I said, you go in here. I have things for waters. These are the water things that are off of the OT site. I mainly use Guthooks for that. I have contacts for people that I might have to call, which I did use these. Got Cell. I knew I had their numbers right here. It was good to go. Resupply Notes. List of shelters. This is my food spreadsheet where I was calculating, nutrients per ounce or gram of weight and trying to make sure I was getting, I was making sure I had enough food. I wanted to have 3,000 calories a day. Ended up taking a little more than that, actually. These are my recipes for like my rocket fuel breakfast here. And my ramen bomb. I got pretty detailed. Probably the biggest thing was for me was the amount of planning and logistics. I had no idea what I was signing up for. So it was a lot of planning. If you had a trail where you were just walking through little towns, like sometime on the Appalachian, where you could just resupply, I think you could get by with a little less planning. Day to day, my plans were usually obsessed with two things: water, where I was filling up water, how much water I needed to carry right now, because if I was hitting a water source every couple of miles, I basically didn't need to carry water at all. Like I could have a liter of water, camel up at each thing. And that's not very heavy. And where I was going to stop, which, like I said, I had a plan. Plan didn't always work out. Those are the big things I worried about every day. Where was I going to camp? There's the shelters, which were sort of like the gold standard. You didn't have to worry about getting wet. Therefore, you didn't have to worry about packing up wet stuff in the morning or drying it off. You didn't have to set up and tear down the tent, which mine is just kind of pain in the butt. It took a long time. So that was a big deal. Campsites, tent sites in the fall, sometimes they were hard to even find under the leaves, or they weren't that great. Theoretically, you could camp lots of places, although the regulations in each parts of the trail are confusing. But usually you could, in an emergency, you could find a safe spot. Just you could flop down on the trail. You're not really supposed to, but you could find a wide spot of the trail that was flat. Derek and I ended up in a terrible camping spot where I bailed out of my tent site in the middle, right when we were about to go to sleep, because I was afraid I was going to roll into this creek. So anything else? So that's about what was decisions during the day. You should be prepared. There's a kind of famous, at least in low water times, 20-mile waterless stretch where you have to overnight, which means you have to be responsible and make sure you have enough water. As far as training, the big thing is I walked a lot. Sounds simple, but I was riding the bus most of the year before, or at least the 6 months or so before started working from home. And I would put in a lot of miles with that. And then once I started training with the pack a lot, hopefully with most of my actual load near the end. My big thing I worked on that I read about was distressed footing. I didn't walk on roads. I walked on grass. I tried to walk on either doing inclines in a parking garage. Those are great. You can do stairs as well, and you could hike that regardless of the weather. I found things like, sand volleyball lots in Reeves Park that were hard to walk through, right? There's a rock trail in front of the Natural History Museum. I would do hills at the Sooner baseball park over and over again, this same hill. And I did it with no trekking poles, which just training wise, A, kind of look goofy in trekking poles, and B, just training wise, then my thinking was it would feel a lot easier with trekking poles, because trekking poles are pretty much, in my opinion, required for the OT. You really are able to unload a lot of work to your upper body when you're going up a hill, kind of angle, and you push off of them. My objective was to get my shoulders and triceps and biceps and chest even a little bit. Like it should be burning by the time I got to the hill, because that was work that my legs didn't have to do. And going down the hill, you can lessen and catch that impact of stopping yourself, because remember, you got an extra 35-40 pounds on your back. You have a lot of momentum. If those poles could take that instead of my knees and ankle joints, that helped a lot. I can't imagine not having those. They were almost more useful on the downhill for catching your momentum like that. So anyway, I didn't train with those. The other things I did is a lot of squats and deadlifts. Towards the end, I was doing 100 squats a day, sometimes with the pack, walking, lunges. But the big thing I think that helped was the distress footing work. If I was forced to walk on a street, I was hopping up and down on the curbs. When I went across that parking lot, I was jumping on, if there was a row of curbs, I was taking those, jumping from, parking curb to parking curb, simulating like jumping rocks back and forth. I think that helped. That kind of training helped a lot. Like I like I said, tried to mess with my footing, because that's what's hard, walking in acorns and leaves, and that rock wobbles, and you're stepping irregularly linked, so you can go over that rock or whatever. It sounds small, but over the day you're using a lot of weird stabilizer muscles and stuff, so you just got to try to work that. And then I was watching the videos, and I say a couple of times, I'm like, it's real simple to walk a lot of miles in the day. You just don't stop. That's way more important than pace. You get out super early, get efficient at your teardown. My objective was to be out at 6:45, which was technically before sunrise. It was glowing, and I made it a lot of times. Certainly, like 7:30 would be late for me to get out. The days were very short in the fall, which is a negative about hiking in the fall. The days are astoundingly short. It's like 2 o'clock and the sun is starting to slide down behind the mountains in parts of the trail. If you're on the wrong side of the ridge, if you're on the north side of the ridge, the OT kind of shakes back and forth, like off the top of the ridge from you going on the north side to the south side. And on the south side, you're going to get a lot more sun. On the north side, you're going to be blocked because the sun is in the south, and it late in the afternoon when you drop over to the north side of the ridge, and it's like 2 o'clock and the sun's going behind the mountain, and you're in the shade and cold, and it's crazy. It's darkish at 5:30 and really dark at 6. I would try to stay up till 6:30 in full dark and see the stars. That's how early I was going to bed. But it was cool. Day's not very long. Anyway, I think that's about it, other than to say you should totally do it. And if you need anybody who's watching this who needs something, who's going to hike the OT and has a question, ask it in the comment below, or just message me directly, or you need advice on something or some approach, or you need a ride, let me know, because it was a super cool experience for me, and I think more people should experience it. So give it a shot. Okay, hope this is my last time to have to do this. So happy hiking from the Copper.